Imagine a scenario for a second. It's, I don't know, a Tuesday. You're sitting on your couch, phone in hand, just doom scrolling a bit, maybe watching TV in the background.
Yep, we've all been there.
You see a notification pop up. It's a tweet, a single sentence, maybe just a few words, possibly a meme. And because of those few words typed out by one specific man, $40 billion in corporate value just evaporates.
Gone!
Gone in a matter of hours.
And the man who typed it, he probably did it while he was in the bathroom. And he doesn't even flinch. He's already thinking about something else entirely.
Exactly. He doesn't blink. And here is the kicker, the really wild part. That same man controls the rockets that the most powerful governments on Earth, the ones with massive space programs, rely on to get their astronauts into orbit.
Right. NASA's a customer.
He holds the keys to a massive chunk of the global satellite internet infrastructure that our militaries, use to fight wars. He owns the digital town square where the world argues about politics. And now he has a direct line to the President of the United States.
It sounds like the setup for a high-stakes techno-thriller novel, doesn't it? The rogue billionaire who captures the state from the inside.
It really does.
But this isn't fiction. This is just the reality of the world we're living in right now.
It is. We are talking, of course, about Elon Musk. But listen, we aren't here to do the usual thing. We're not just going to read his Wikipedia page or gossip about his latest celebrity feud.
No.
We have a different mission today for this deep dive. We want to strip away the Iron Man highlight reel. We want to get past the caricature, the memes.
Right. Because the public myth of Musk and the complex reality of the man are two very, very different things. He isn't just a businessman anymore. That's an outdated way to think about him.
How should we think about him then?
If you look at the source material we've gathered, and we're talking financial reports, biographies, geopolitical analysis, it becomes clear that he is the architect of a completely new kind of modern power. It's something we haven't really seen before.
So how does a bullied kid from South Africa become the wealthiest person on Earth and a geopolitical force that's frankly comparable to a nation state? That is what we are going to unpack today. We are going to trace the specific steps.
And I promise you, some of these steps are not what you think they are. It's not just about being smart or working hard. It's about a very specific kind of psychology, a very specific pathology.
Okay, let's dive right in. Let's go back to the beginning. South Africa. There's this huge debate that always swirls around Musk, and it's this self-made man narrative.
Oh, yeah.
Did he really start from nothing?
This is one of those areas where the internet loves to fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have the started from the bottom camp who think he showed up in North America with a knapsack and $1.
Right, the classic immigrant story.
And then you have the other camp, he was an apartheid emerald mine heir camp.
Which he vehemently denies.
He does. The truth, based on all the records we can find, is somewhere in the middle, but it's leaning heavily toward privilege. Let's be clear about that.
So what are the facts? His father, Elon Musk, he wasn't just some random guy. He was an engineer, a property developer.
Correct. Errol was a serious businessman in Pretoria. He was successful. And yes, there was an emerald connection. It's not a total fabrication. He had a stake in an emerald mine in Zambia, not South Africa, which is a distinction people often miss, but the point stands.
So there was money?
There was definitely money. The family wasn't billionaires, not by a long shot, but they were firmly upper middle class. Think about what that meant in that time and place. They had household staff. They traveled internationally. He had seen the world before he was a teenager. He had a safety net, a big one.
So the idea that Elon arrived in North America with zero resources, that he was sleeping in hostels and eating packets of hot dogs, that isn't quite true.
It's a myth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a myth that Musk, I think, actively promotes because it fits the archetype of the American dream so perfectly.
Mm.
It's the hero's journey, right? The lone genius overcoming adversity.
It sells better than guy from a wealthy family made more money.
Exactly. But we have to acknowledge the head start. His grandfather was also a notable politician and aviator in Canada. There was political standing and social capital in that family tree. However, and this is a big curve, however, having money doesn't mean life was easy in every regard.
And this is where the story takes a really dark turn. Because we need to talk about the trauma. Even if he had a nice house and traveled, his time outside of it, and from some accounts, sometimes inside it, was just brutal.
It was severe. And I think this is absolutely critical for understanding his adult psychology, his drive, his everything, really. We're talking about serious physical bullying. There's a well-documented incident where he was thrown down a flight of concrete stairs by a group of boys.
Concrete stairs.
Concrete stairs. And they're beaten at the bottom until he lost consciousness.
Oh my
He
God.
had to be hospitalized for it.
Mm.
He eventually needed surgery years later to fix a deviated septum from the damage done that day.
Hospitalized.
Yeah.
That's not just kids being mean. That is a serious assault.
Precisely. And you have to remember the context of South Africa in the 70s and 80s. It was a culture that prized physical toughness, rugby, a certain kind of aggressive machismo.
And Elon was not that.
He was the absolute opposite. He was small for his age, he was introverted, he was the classic nerd who was literally reading encyclopedias for fun. He was socially isolated. He was a perfect target.
It makes you wonder how much of his drive today, that relentless need to win, comes from that specific pain.
I think it's foundational. It is a classic psychological pattern. When you experience that level of humiliation and powerlessness as a child, it often fuels a pathological need to be exceptional as an
You
adult.
have to prove them all wrong.
You have to prove them wrong, but it's more than that. It creates a massive risk tolerance because, in a way, you've already survived the worst thing that could happen to you. And it creates this drive to become so powerful, so untouchable, that no one can ever hurt you again.
So if you're the richest man on earth,
If you're the richest man on earth, nobody can throw you down the stairs.
you build a fortress of money and power around yourself.
Exactly. A fortress of achievement.
He wasn't just getting beaten up, though. On the flip side of that coin, he was also showing signs of that intense intellect really, really early on. I found this detail in the notes just fascinating. He was having a full-blown existential crisis at age 10.
Well, yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Most 10-year-olds are worrying about homework or video games or catching a ball.
Right.
Musk was reading Nietzsche and Schopenhauer.
Wow.
He describes having this profound grappling with the meaning of life, the point of it all. And he concluded, at age 10 or 11, that the only thing that really mattered was expanding the scope and scale of human consciousness. That was the mission.
That is heavy for a fifth grader. It's not something you just come up with.
It's not, but it aligns perfectly with his behavior. Around that same time, he taught himself basic programming on a Commodore 64.
Oh, a classic.
A total classic. And get this, at age 12, he wrote the code for a video game, a space shooter called Blaster.
Blaster. Did he just play it himself, or?
No, he sold it. He sold the source code to a computer magazine for, I think it was around $200, maybe $500. The number varies, but the point is...
A paid tech entrepreneur at 12?
Exactly. His brother Kimball has talked about this trait Elon had from a young age, this hyper-focus. When he locked on to something, whether it was a book or a computer, the rest of the world just disappeared.
He'd just zone out completely.
Completely. His mother, May, saw it too. She recognized he was gifted, but she also worried because that gift, combined with the bullying, just made him more and more of an outsider in Pretoria.
So he has to get out. He's 17. He's staring down the barrel of the South African military draft, which was compulsory. And he definitely doesn't want to be a part of that system, which would mean enforcing apartheid. What's the move?
The move is strategic. It's always strategic with him. He goes to Canada, and you have to understand, it wasn't a random choice.
It was a calculated step.
Absolutely. His mother was Canadian-born, which made the paperwork and the visa process much, much easier. But Canada was really just a stepping stone. He knew the real action, the center of the universe for what he wanted to do, was in the United States.
He plays a long game.
Always. He's thinking 5, 10 steps ahead. He spends a couple of years at Queen's University in Ontario, a good school, but he's already plotting the transfer. He works to get his grades up, and he gets into the University of Pennsylvania Wharton.
That's the Ivy League.
That's the big leagues. And he doesn't just do one degree. He gets dual degrees in economics and physics.
I want to pause on that combination for a second. Economics and physics. That feels really significant.
It's the Rosetta Stone for his entire career. I really believe that. Physics teaches him first principles thinking, how to boil a complex problem down to its most fundamental atomic level, the raw materials, the immutable laws of nature.
Not just accepting the way things are done.
Right. He asks, what is a battery actually made of? What are the commodity prices for lithium and cobalt and nickel? Not what does a battery cost, but what should it cost?
And the economic side.
That teaches him how capital flows, how markets work, how to build a business around the physics. Most people have one or the other. You're either a science person or a business person. Musk has both. He understands the atoms, and he understands the money.
And then comes the moment that I think solidifies the whole Silicon Valley legend. He gets into a PhD program at Stanford in applied physics.
Stanford. That is the absolute golden ticket in the tech world.
And he drops out.
after 2 days.
2 days. That is just insane to me. My parents would have had a heart attack.
I think everyone's parents would have. But it was 1995. You have to put yourself in that moment. The internet was just exploding. Netscape had just had its massive IPO. The world was changing literally by the week. And Musk looked at the academic track, which is slow and methodical, and then he looked at the internet, which was this chaotic, vertical rocket ship.
And he realized he couldn't sit in a classroom reading books while the world was being rewritten outside.
He had to be in the game. He dropped out to catch the wave.
And that leads directly to his first real company, Zip2.
Right. He starts this with his brother Kimball. They barely have any money. They're sleeping in the office, showering at the YMCA.
Yeah, classic startup story.
The whole thing. And the idea was basically an online city guide. Think of it like a primitive Google Maps plus Yelp for newspapers. It was software that provided maps, business directories, that kind of thing.
It sounds so quaint now, but back then...
In the mid-90s, this was cutting edge. Newspapers were terrified of the internet. They saw it as this existential threat. And Zip2 came along and gave them a way to get online, a turnkey solution.
And it pays off.
Oh, big time. In 1999, Compaq, which was a huge computer company back then, buys Zip2.
For how much?
The deal is for about $307 million. Musk's share from that deal, after everything was said and done, was $22 million.
Okay, let's stop here for a second. $22 million. He's in his late 20s. For 99.9% of people on this planet, the story ends right there.
It's over. You've won the game.
You buy a private island, you retire, you drink margaritas for the rest of your life, you invest in mutual funds, you are set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the rational, logical move. But Musk, he takes that $22 million and immediately bets it all on the next venture. Almost every single penny. He is constitutionally incapable of cashing out and sitting still.
He founds X.com.
Yes. Which brings us to the whole PayPal saga. And we need to do a little fact-checking here because this is a huge misconception that people have. They often say, Elon Musk invented PayPal.
Which is
not true. It's just not. He founded X.com, which was an ambitious online working startup, a bank with no branches. Again, a wild idea at the time.
right.
That company, X.com, eventually merged with a competitor down the street called Confinity. And Confinity had this cool little email payment product. That product was called PayPal.
So he didn't code PayPal from scratch in his garage.
No. He acquired it through a merger. And in fact, the merger was incredibly messy. There were huge fights about technology, about branding. Musk wanted to get rid of the PayPal brand and call everything X.com.
And the board didn't like that.
The board and engineers hated it. And it led to this coup. He was actually ousted as CEO of the merged company.
He got fired from his own company.
Effectively, yes. It was a boardroom coup. And get this, it happened while he was on an airplane flying to his honeymoon with his first wife, Justine. He landed and found out he'd been replaced.
Wow. That has to sting. That's brutal.
It did. He was furious. But, and this is a crucial character moment, he kept his equity. He was the largest shareholder. He didn't let the ego blow up the entire deal and walk away with nothing. He swallowed his pride.
And that turned out to be the smart move.
The smartest move of his life up to that point. Because when eBay bought PayPal in 2002 for $1.5 billion in stock,
$1.5 billion.
Musk's share, his personal take from that, was about $165 million after taxes.
So in just a few years, he goes from 22 million to 165 million. But there's something else about this era that's maybe even more important, right? The PayPal mafia.
This is almost more valuable than the money itself in the long run. The network he built there, you're talking about Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, who founded LinkedIn, David Sachs, the Yammer guys. These people became the power brokers of Silicon Valley for the next 2 decades.
And they all stay connected.
They're a tribe. They invest in each other's companies. They support each other. When Musk was failing later on, and believe me, he was failing hard, this network was the safety net that provided capital and connections and crucial support. They shield each other. It's an incredibly powerful network.
So now he is sitting on $165 million. He's barely 30. And this is where the story goes from successful tech guy to, well, to absolute maniac.
That's one way to put it.
Because he decides to start a rocket company.
SpaceX. Founded in 2002. You have to understand, at the time, this was considered the fastest way to turn a large fortune into a small one. It was a joke in the investment community.
Because space was for governments.
It was for NASA and the Russians and the European Space Agency. It was the domain of nation states with unlimited budgets. The idea that some dot-com guy from Silicon Valley could build rockets better and cheaper was laughable.
And it almost killed him financially. It almost proved all the critics right.
It was a near-death experience for the company and for him personally. They built their first rocket, the Falcon 1. The first launch in 2006, it gets off the pad for a few seconds and then explodes.
Okay, setback. You try again.
The second launch in 2007, it gets further, but it fails. Another failure. The third launch in August of 2008 fails again. Another explosion.
Imagine the pressure. You are burning through millions and millions of dollars of your own money, the money you made from PayPal, and every single time you push the big red button, it literally blows up in front of the world.
By late 2008, Musk was broke. And I don't mean billionaire broke, where you only have one mansion left. I mean actually broke. He had liquidated almost all his personal assets to pour into SpaceX and Tesla. He was borrowing money from friends for rent.
For rent?
He was going through a very public and nasty divorce. He described it later as eating glass and staring into the abyss. He had just enough cash scraped together for one last launch attempt. If the fourth launch failed, SpaceX was dead. Tesla was also on the brink of bankruptcy. He was facing total, complete ruin.
The end of everything.
Everything. He would have been a cautionary tale. Remember that PayPal guy who thought he could build rockets? That would have been his legacy.
And then September 28, 2008.
The Falcon 1 flies, and it reaches orbit. It was the first privately developed, liquid-fueled rocket to ever do so.
Wow.
And that success, that single data point, changed everything. NASA was watching. Right before Christmas that year, they signed a $1.6 billion contract with SpaceX to resupply the International Space Station.
And that contract saved the company.
It saved everything. It was the lifeline he needed.
It's just incredible how thin the line is between visionary genius and bankrupt fool. A few seconds of flight time.
If that rocket had exploded, we absolutely wouldn't be having this conversation. But it worked. And once they had that NASA contract, they went on to revolutionize the entire economics of space with reusable rockets, the idea of landing the boosters back on Earth.
Why is that specifically so important? Explain that for us.
Sure. Think of it this way. Imagine if every time you flew from New York to London, you had to throw away the Boeing 747 at Heathrow and then build a brand new one for the return trip.
That would be an expensive ticket.
It would cost millions of dollars per person. That was the space industry for 50 years. You used the rocket once, and then you threw it away in the ocean. It was absurdly wasteful.
Right.
Musk just applied first principles. He said, why don't we just land it and refuel it? It sounds simple, but the engineering was insanely difficult. By landing that booster, he cut the cost of access to space by orders of magnitude, by 90% or more.
And now the business model isn't just launches for NASA.
Oh no, it's Starlink. This constellation of thousands of internet satellites, they have something like 6,000 of them up there now. It's a money printing machine. We're talking 6, maybe 10 billion in revenue a year. Very soon. It's a profitable, gigantic business that is now funding the original Mars dream.
So while he is literally eating glass and stressing about rockets exploding, he is also trying to revolutionize the 100-year-old car industry. Let's talk Tesla. There's another myth correction coming up here, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a big one. And it's similar to the PayPal story. Elon Musk did not found Tesla.
He didn't.
No. It was started in 2003 by two engineers, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. They had the initial idea for a high-performance electric sports car.
So where does Musk come in?
He came in later, in 2004, as the lead investor. He put in $6.5 million of his PayPal money and became the chairman of the board. But again, it was a rocky relationship. He eventually forced the founders out in a very hostile takeover.
Another coup.
Another coup? He even sued them to be legally recognized as a co-founder, a title he eventually won.
That is such a power move.
It's incredibly aggressive. It's ruthless. But you also have to give him credit where it's due. Without Musk's capital and his relentless, almost inhuman drive, Tesla probably would have been a footnote in automotive history. He forced the Model S and then the Model 3 into existence through sheer will.
And that led to manufacturing hell.
His words, that was the period around 2017, 2018, trying to ram up production of the Model 3. It almost bankrupted the company again. They were literally sleeping on the factory floor. They built a whole new assembly line in a giant tent in the parking lot because the factory wasn't big enough.
Yeah.
It was chaos.
But they pulled it off.
They pulled it off. And in doing so, they forced the entire global auto industry, GM, Ford, Toyota, Volkswagen, all of them, to pivot to electric vehicles. That is his legacy there. He didn't invent the EV, but he dragged the entire industry kicking and screaming into the future.
And the financial payoff for all that pain was just absurd.
The year 2020 was the inflection point. The stock just went vertical. It surged 700% in 1 year.
700%.
Tesla's valuation hit $1 trillion. And that surge made Musk the richest man on Earth. His personal net worth ballooned to more than the entire gross domestic product of a country like New Zealand or Finland.
That comparison just blows my mind. One man's wealth is greater than an entire developed nation's economy for a year.
And that's where the psychology shifts again. When you have that much wealth, your perception of risk and consequence it warps. You're not playing by the same rules anymore. You're surrounded by yes men. You start to believe you can do anything. You start to think that the normal rules of gravity, the social gravity, financial gravity, they just don't apply to you.
Which brings us, I think, to the moment where he decided he should own the digital town square, the Twitter acquisition.
The $44 billion impulse buy.
It really seemed like that, didn't it? Why did he do it? It looked like such a mess from the very beginning.
It was an absolute mess. He started by buying up 9% of the shares, quietly, secretly. Then he made a hostile takeover bid for the whole company. Then, almost immediately, he tried to back out of the deal.
Right. He claimed there were too many bots, too many fake accounts.
Which was probably just buyer's remorse. Twitter's board called his bluff. They sued him to force him to complete the deal at the agreed price. And he eventually caved and bought it in late 2022.
And then he took a sledgehammer to it.
Immediately. On day one, he walked into the headquarters carrying a sink. The joke was, let that sink in. And then he fired the CEO, the CFO, the entire board of directors. Then he cut 50% of the staff.
50%.
3,600 people gone in a blink. He gutted the trust and safety teams, the content moderation teams, and then the ultimate act of hubris, the rebrand. He threw away a globally recognized, iconic brand Twitter, the Bluebird, because of his 25-year-long obsession with the letter X.
From a pure business perspective, it looks like a complete and utter disaster. The company's value plummeted. Revenue dropped by 50%. Advertisers fled in droves.
If you look at it as a traditional investment, it's a catastrophe. He overpaid massively and then destroyed a huge amount of value. But what if you look at it differently? What if you look at it as buying influence?
Buying megaphone.
Buying the world's most powerful megaphone. He gained absolute control over a primary global communication platform. He controls the algorithm. He controls the rules of speech. He decides who gets seen and who gets silenced. That is a form of power that money usually can't buy.
And this pivots perfectly into the next phase of his career, which is the full-on political pivot, because X became his political weapon.
Exactly. We saw a very distinct shift in Musk's public persona. It probably started really during COVID. He fought viciously with the state of California over keeping his Fremont factory open during lockdown.
Right. He threatened to move the company to Texas.
Which he eventually did. He started framing everything around free speech, which became a sort of code for anti-establishment, right-leaning politics. He began to see what he calls the woke mind virus as the single greatest threat to human civilization.
And then came the 2024 election cycle.
And he stopped pretending to be a political centrist. He came out and fully endorsed Donald Trump. But he didn't just tweet an endorsement. He put his money where his mouth was. He created the America PAC.
And poured how much into it?
The numbers are still being tallied, but it's well over $200 million into the campaign and related efforts. He essentially turned the entire platform X into a pro-Trump engine, amplifying friendly narratives and suppressing critical ones.
And the return on that investment.
He got a cabinet-level appointment. He was asked to lead a new department called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency.
That's a meme reference, right, to Dogecoin?
It is a deliberate, explicit meme reference to Dogecoin. It's trolling, but with the full force of the U.S. government behind it. But the implications are deadly serious.
Explain that.
You have a man whose companies, SpaceX and Tesla, rely on billions and billions of dollars in government contracts, tax credits, and subsidies. And now, he is the one advising the president on budget cuts and government efficiency.
So he could theoretically recommend cutting the budget for the regulators who are supposed to be overseeing the safety of his cars, or cutting funding for competitors to SpaceX.
That is the fundamental conflict of interest. It's unprecedented in American history. He is the regulator and the regulated all at once. It's a completely closed loop of power. Imagine if John D. Rockefeller could audit the government agencies that were supposed to be breaking up his Standard Oil monopoly. That is the situation we're in right now.
And the rest of the world is watching this nervously. I saw notes about Europe in particular freaking out.
Oh, Europe is alarmed. Musk has used X to interfere in elections there, openly supporting far-right parties like the AfD in Germany. He's clashed publicly with government officials in Brazil, in the UK, across the EU. He's acting like a geopolitical actor, not a CEO. He has his own foreign policy.
The Starlink in Ukraine situation is the prime example of that.
It's the perfect example. He personally decides when the satellite network is on or off over the battlefield, which has a direct impact on real-time military operations. He can turn the tide of a battle with a flip of a switch from his office in Texas. A single individual holds that power, not an elected government.
It's a lot to take in. It's a huge concentration of power, but we have to look at the wider empire too, because it isn't just cars and rockets and tweets. There is the really sci-fi stuff happening in the background.
You mean Neuralink?
Brain chips. It sounds like something from a movie.
Brain-computer interfaces. And in 2024, it stopped being science fiction. They implanted the first chip in a human patient. It allowed a man who was paralyzed from the shoulders down to control a mouse cursor on a computer just by thinking.
That's incredible. The potential is amazing.
The potential is incredible. It could cure blindness, paralysis, a host of neurological disorders, but it is surrounded by very serious ethical concerns. There were the reports over animal testing, the gruesome accounts of monkeys dying in the labs during development, and then there's the long-term privacy aspect. Do you really want Elon Musk or any corporation having access to the inside of your head?
And he's also building an AI company.
AI, his direct competitor to OpenAI, which he co-founded and then left, and Google. He's building this massive Memphis supercomputer to train his AI model, which is called Grok.
And where is he getting the data to train it?
And here is the kicker, the master plan. He is using the data from X, all our tweets, all our DMs, all our arguments and interactions and photos for the last 15 years. He bought the town square so we could strip mine it for data to build his own AI. It's all connected.
But with all this world-changing ambition comes a very dark side. We alluded to the ruthless firings, but how does he treat people on a daily basis?
The reports on the work culture from former employees are incredibly consistent across all his companies. It's toxic. He demands 80 to 100-hour weeks as a baseline. He has a history of firing people on the spot for disagreeing with him in a meeting, or sometimes for just being in his line of sight when he's in a bad mood.
So it's a culture of fear.
A deep culture of fear. He treats human beings like components in a machine. If a part is faulty or slow or questioning, you don't fix it, you just replace it and move on.
And the legal issues have piled up over the years.
Oh, the list is long. The SEC sued him for securities fraud over that infamous funding-secured tweet where he claimed he would take Tesla private. He paid a $20 million fine for that.
Which is pocket change to him.
It's a rounding error. There were numerous lawsuits over labor violations, unsafe factory conditions, and then there are the personal attacks, the most famous being him calling that British rescue diver in the Thailand cave incident a pedo guy, simply because the guy criticized Musk's mini-submarine idea.
He's just incredibly thin-skinned when his ego is bruised.
Exactly. He's ruthless.
And his personal life seems just as chaotic and complex as his business life.
It's all of a piece. 3 marriages, 2 of them to the same woman, the actress Tallulah Riley, a very public and complex relationship with the singer Grimes. And the children. He has fathered at least 12 children with multiple partners.
Why so many?
He is obsessed with the idea of a global population collapse. He truly believes it's the biggest threat we face, and he sees it as his duty to combat it by spreading his genes. He views his own DNA as a valuable resource that needs to be distributed as widely as possible.
He also disclosed on Saturday Night Live that he has Asperger's syndrome.
He did. And that disclosure provides some important context for his social awkwardness, his very blunt, sometimes cruel communication style. He processes the world differently. He doesn't read social cues the way most people do. He operates on a plane of pure logic and efficiency, often at the great expense of empathy.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. We've talked about the roots, the businesses, the politics, the psychology. When you put it all together, what is the nature of his power right now, today?
I think of it as an unholy trinity of influence. It's a structure we've never really seen before in one person.
Okay, what are the 3 parts?
First, he controls critical infrastructure. Governments need him. The U.S. government cannot get its astronauts to space without SpaceX. The Ukrainian military's effectiveness depends on Starlink. He owns the physical layer.
Okay, that's one.
Second, he has information control. He owns X, which, despite its problems, still sets the global news agenda. It's where journalists, politicians, and leaders talk. He shapes the narrative. He owns the discourse layer.
And the third piece?
Third, he has political access. He is now in the room where it happens. He has the ear of the president. He is leading a department, DOGE, that can influence the entire federal government. He owns the policy layer.
Infrastructure, information, and policy.
All in one person.
Is there anyone historical we can compare him to? A Rockefeller, a Carnegie?
People make that comparison to the robber barons of the Gilded Age, and it's not wrong, but I would argue Musk is more powerful. Rockefeller controlled oil. That was huge, a foundational piece of the economy. But he didn't also own all the newspapers and advise the president on government policy and control the telegraph network all at the same time.
Musk spans multiple verticals of civilization simultaneously.
Exactly. He is building the cars we drive, the rockets that go to space, the chips that go in our brains, the AI that will think for us, and the media platform we use to talk about it all. It's a level of integrated vertical power that is entirely new.
So what drives a man to want all of this? Is it just about money?
No, I don't think it's about the money anymore. The money is just a way of keeping score. I think it goes all the way back to that kid at the bottom of the concrete stairs in Pretoria.
The Trump.
I think it's a mix of genuine idealism. He really does want to get humanity to Mars. He really does believe in the transition to green energy. He believes he is saving the species, and a deep pathological need to matter. He needs to save the world, but he also needs to be the only one who can save it. It's a savior narrative, and it allows him to justify any ruthless behavior along the way because it's all in service of the grand mission.
It's a dangerous combination, though, that kind of self-belief.
Extremely dangerous, because it sets a precedent for oligarchic control in a democracy. If one man can buy the public square and then use that to buy his way into the White House administration, do we really have a democracy anymore? Or do we just have a technocracy run by the richest guy in the room?
And that is the fundamental question we are left with, isn't it? Will the system correct itself? Will there be some kind of pushback from regulators or the public? Or is this just the new normal?
Only time will tell. But right now, we are all living in Elon's world. We're just paying rent.
Well, that is a lot to process. From a bruised kid in Pretoria to the architect of modern power. It's a story that sounds like fiction, but as you said, we're all watching it play out in real time.
Indeed. It is arguably the most important story in the world right now, because his decisions affect everything, from climate change to free speech to the future of war.
For everyone listening, take a moment today to maybe look at the systems around you. The car you drive, the news you read, the way you connect to the internet. How much of it relies on the decisions of this one man? It's something worth thinking about.
Absolutely.
This has been a deep dive into the complex reality of Elon Musk. Thanks for listening.
Take care.